with the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle. Join us live on VTRN Sports 93.3 FM or the VTRN Sports app. Open VTRN Sports on your smart speaker or stream live on YouTube. Time to get ready for your day with the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle and Ty Tracy.
And guess what? Ty's actually here today.
Hey everyone, good morning, and I hope everybody having a great Tuesday so far. I just woke up and got my workout in for the morning.
Yeah, that was your morning warm-up for the morning warm-up. How about that? Look at that tie together. Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the I guess the second ever episode of the morning warm-up. My name's Trey Lyle.
My first day here, though.
Yes, Ty. We just went over that.
I know. I just wanted to just put out there my first day here, your second day.
Yes, this is why I said the second episode. But you know, I'm not going to get too hyperbolic on this show. I try not to. But the future of television changed last night, and I think we have to talk about it. And you know, I don't know. There's a lot of wrestling fans, like WWE fans, listening right now, and it's not. I am a WWE fan. I'm a wrestling fan. I know Ty is. We've talked about it. Yep. But it's not that we want to talk about Monday Night Raw last night and what happened and everything that went into it. It was the platform that it was on. It was on Netflix, and Netflix is venturing into live sports. And if you want, say, wrestling is not quote unquote live sports, but it is run as if it is a live sport, theoretically speaking. But they did the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. 160 million got to see the backside of Mike Tyson, which I'm included in that. Then you had the NFL games, which averaged like 26.5 million viewers. Obviously peaked with a mixed reaction to a Beyonce thing, like from people I know. Maybe it's like the older people in my family did not like it, whereas I kind of liked it. I think you had to understand Beyonce was doing a country album. But Raw on Netflix going forward, it's like $1 billion deal, which is a lot of money, lots and lots of money.
Dollar bills, y'all.
But what does that mean going forward for sports? And I think, you know, Netflix is the biggest streamer in the world. I think it's like 260 million, 280 million. It means that Netflix is now in the live TV game. Well, we've seen Amazon do it. We've seen Peacock, which Max is doing it. But those are all, you know, not Amazon, but Peacock and Max are associated with a linear cable TV brand, whether it's NBC, TNT, et cetera, Amazon or Prime Video, obviously heavy in the NFL. They're picking up 5 NASCAR races this year. They're picking up the NBA. Of course, if you don't want to pay or you don't have Amazon Prime and you just want to listen to their game between the Steelers and the Ravens for free, just make sure you have the VTRN Sports app. You can listen wherever you go and watch take in the game that way. But Netflix now entering the live sports game. I think that means that linear TV, I don't want to say a thing of a past because we're both, 20, in our 20s. And I don't think that will go away necessarily, but I do think it will be interesting with these TV negotiation deals. It's obviously starts with the UFC, which you can draw a lot to the WWE because they're technically the same company. They're the same parent company, TKO Endeavor, which is owned by Ari Emanuel, who, if you like me, are a big fan of the show Entourage, was the inspiration of the character Ari. I think Netflix will have a say in the UFC deal, and whether maybe the UFC pay-per-views go to Netflix or something on that. Netflix is going to make a stake. I think the biggest thing is I think roughly 5 years from now, the NFL has an opt-out in their deal, which they will take. They're the NFL. They will add a week 18, and I think Netflix will get a bigger stake in this. But what does that mean for a consumer? Like, as a consumer, you're now going to have to pay for, TV, internet, because you got to stream it. And then all these streaming services, it's definitely, the idea of cutting the cord was to get, because it was cheaper, and now it gets more expensive. What do you think, Ty? What do you think about Netflix entering the live sports world? Because I feel like Amazon is Amazon, and yes, but it feels like Netflix is a different level because it's a true streamer. Whereas Amazon,
because they was the first platform to be streaming and everything, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Netflix is Netflix. It's kind of canon now.
Yeah, I mean, they head to the right direction and stuff, especially being the first platform to be streaming like movies and TV shows and stuff. So I like how they're going. And I think like last night with the WWE, because like I said, we used to be big wrestling fans and stuff. I mean, still not the same like it used to be, but it was still good to see it on there and catch everybody's attention. Like
John Cena came out last night because it's his farewell tour, and I was excited.
I mean, I was excited too, but I'm like, John Cena, you ain't got to prove nothing, man. You did too much for us. We already know who you are. We know your legacy. You're still one of the best wrestlers of all time. So he ain't had to do all that. But I'm glad this is his farewell tour. But
he's gonna go out. He's gonna get his 17th title. I know we said we wouldn't talk wrestling, but we are a little bit.
He most likely will win Royal Rumble. Like he said, he's gonna win it. Everybody knows that.
Which my favorite event is the Royal Rumble because it's insane.
Definitely. But I think it's going to the right direction. But the one thing I'm hoping that the NFL don't add add another game to the season. I hope they don't, because like I said, football is not a year-round sport. That's what I'm hoping. But
they are.
I mean,
spoiler, they are.
It's Roger Goodell. He just want to make football year-round. You can't and stuff. That's one thing I don't like about it.
Yeah, I think he's made football year-round in terms of being in the vernacular. It's talked about year-round, whereas when we were younger, when SportsCenter was cool, which I still watch,
I do too.
ESPN in the morning, but yeah. I remember I know my mom is watching this right now, so for a fact, I think I just displayed her comment about too many streaming services on our live stream. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to comment. But every morning it was SportsCenter on the TV. Was it Sunday? It was the 10-year anniversary of Stuart Scott's passing, and as someone who wanted to get in this, like Stuart Scott was like him and Scott Van Pelt are the two like inspirations for me from a TV side of things. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think we could talk big picture about sports TV. As the Athletics Andrew Marchand says, everyone wants to cover sports media, but let's talk more about sports. I have a couple takeaways still from the NFL this past week. I want to get your thoughts, Ty. Trent Baalke, man, the best job security in the world. I said it yesterday at the morning warm up, wherever you get your podcast. Check it out. He somehow is retained by the Jacksonville Jaguars, while Doug Peterson, granted, deservingly, gets fired yesterday. Dable was announced as staying. Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen were announced as staying. It appears that Antonio Pierce is staying with the Raiders, which I do not get. But granted, when you're rolling out Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as your quarterbacks, I think he deserves a second chance. Same kind of argument. You kind of make with Romeo because he was rolling out a terrible offensive line, a terrible receiving core. But whatever. It to me it's kind of insane that, you look at Jacksonville, which to me was always the Belichick connected place, is not going to get him now, obviously, because he'll be at North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I think you look at these franchises, I think your GM is sometimes more important. Like, look at Philadelphia. I think Howie Roseman is the most important figure in the organization because he knows how to build a really good roster, and they kind of control things more than Nick Sirianni. They brought in Vic Fangio. They brought in Kellen Moore. Like, I think it was proven when someone here was kind of on the Doug Peterson side over the Howie Roseman side. When Doug Peterson got fired by Philadelphia, I have to admit I was wrong there, because clearly Howie Roseman is a maybe the best GM in the NFL, looking at the roster that Philadelphia has put together, considering they were one of these teams that paid the quarterback, probably shouldn't have, and Carson Wentz, and now look at them. So that's a side point, but Peterson getting fired, I'm not shocked by.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, anything, but it's just like what was going on in Jacksonville. They was going downhill a lot.
He won a Super Bowl.
That too. That's what I'm saying. That's what's like. He's not a bad coach. He's a good coach. He knows how to develop quarterbacks. I just feel like Trevor Lawrence has not developed really well ever since he got there. He developed he good a little bit, but he was still having them issues, the mechanic issues that he need to work on and stuff. That's what I feel like.
To me, Doug Peterson's best skill was his play calling. And for whatever reason, he got rid of it. And, and
he know how to develop young quarterbacks too.
But here's the thing. You could also say, does he? Because his best time with a quarterback was Nick Foles, who was we already knew who Nick Foles was. Carson Wentz had the MVP year, but then in his next couple of years, granted, he was like the playmaker on the team. And I'm not saying Carson Wentz, like I was a Carson Wentz guy.
I still got his rookie jersey.
I still have his jersey. Like the 2017, like I mentioned the 2017 Eagles yesterday, like that season from Wentz when he probably,
because that was his second year.
He was the best player in football. Like there's no argument about it. If you go back, he was the best player in the entire league until he tore his ACL. He was the best quarterback. Like he was doing Mahomes-like stuff before Patrick Mahomes even saw the football field.
Yeah.
But Wentz regressed. And probably part of it was Carson Wentz. But if you're expecting like year one, they go to the playoffs, Trevor Lawrence makes that epic comeback against the Chargers, which I think was a lot to do with Brandon Staley being the head coach of the Chargers. But then he regresses somewhat. And granted, again, injuries. And that's another trend. Like Wentz got beat up, banged up. So is Trevor Lawrence. Maybe that's Doug Peterson's like play calling. Like he gave up the play calling. He had a quarterback that regressed. But now at the end of Philadelphia and then here, I think, I just some guys get magic, kind of get the magic in a bottle, or lightning in a bottle, and I think he got that in Philadelphia. And then ultimately, he's probably a better OC than he is a head coach, like a Steve Spagnuolo is. But granted, I think Steve Spagnuolo deserves a second chance, but.
I mean, I feel like he's not going to leave Kansas City. Maybe depends, but I think he's not going to leave.
I think it would have to be the right opportunity.
Yeah.
I think a really good example of a guy who might be a better coordinator than a head coach. Granted, I think he's learned a lot from his time in Arizona, and it might be because his quarterback just regresses in the second half of the season because Kyler did it this year. But you could argue Cliff Kingsbury is a better offensive coordinator than head coach when he can just focus on the offensive coordinating and focus on the play calling. And what he did with Jaden Daniels this year was phenomenal. And Washington exceeded my expectations of what Jaden Daniels could do. And we'll see where it goes. Granted, the offense did take the Kingsbury slide to some degree. And I think you and I will preview the game against Tampa probably back half of this week. Because I do want to talk about the college football playoff games first today and tomorrow before they start on Thursday. Yeah. But if you look, there's something like as we go through this coaching cycle, half these teams are not going to get this hire rate. Like,
the only teams that got great hires is like Eagles.
Think about this. If you go back to that hiring cycle, the two best hires are with Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni. Probably had the two weirdest press conferences. Nick Sirianni looked like he was lost, and Dan Campbell's like, "Hey man, we're gonna be biting kneecaps, man. All right, man. All right."
Dan Campbell, like he just got up and he just chose violence every day. He just ready.
Remember after that, it wasn't Adam Gase level, which clearly did not work out. And that was maybe the worst press conference I've ever seen in my life. Shout out to Brian Nolan. But just with the eyes as they do it on our stream. But those are the two best hires probably of the thing. And I'm not saying Nick Sirianni, Nick Sirianni's not the best head coach. I think Dan Campbell, what Dan Campbell's done in Detroit and just the culture he brings, and granted.
But it's all about how the players chip in and what you bring around your staff as well.
Yeah, granted, Dan Campbell has two of the best coordinators in the NFL, like Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. As someone riding the Caleb Williams side, Ben Johnson, please come please come to Chicago.
I just feel like he's not going to be in Chicago.
I think he will.
It's just the
atmosphere. You know what? How about in the last segment, we'll predict some coaching hires.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good, because that's the look ahead segment time.
Mm-hmm.
This is just looking back on last night. All right. I have one more takeaway from week 18, or basically the NFL season.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels, despite how great he was, should not be the offensive rookie of the year. The best rookie offensive player.
I'll say Bo Nix.
No, the best offensive rookie player in the NFL this season was also the best player at his position this season, who had Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ridder throwing him the football, had 2 offensive coordinators. Brock Bowers is the offensive rookie of the year. And he's not going to win it. I think it's going to go to Jaden Daniels, and I'm not here to say Jaden Daniels is not deserving of it. He's been great.
I mean, yeah, I'll give you that, Brock Bowers. Plus, I think he set the record for rookie
receptions.
Yeah, as rookie tight end as well.
But he also set the record for most receptions by a tight end in a season.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you on that one.
112 receptions, 1,194 yards. He only had 5 touchdowns. His average was 10.7, which basically means a first down every catch.
Yeah.
He did set the rookie reception, which Neighbors tied and broke, and then he broke again. But I mean, he's going to be he might be the first team All-Pro at tight end and not win the award, because the 2 quarterbacks are going to, and granted, the competition this year is probably not as deep for tight end. Kelsey didn't have a good year. Obviously, Kittle took a step back. I think Trey McBride's in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he won't have the touchdowns, which I wish he had more. Someone who had him on his fantasy team. But, I mean, so the records he set, he broke the rookie pass catching record, and most receiving yards in a rookie tight end. So, which he passed Mike Ditka. Granted, again, I'm sitting here and saying he will not pick it. He will not win the award. It will go to Jaden Daniels. But if I had a vote, which I'll never get, it'll be Brock. It would be Brock Bowers.
I ain't say that's a bad pick. I mean, that's a great standpoint you point out, especially for Brock Bowers. I just feel like Bo Nix probably had a better. Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels and stuff. But Brock Bowers really stand out over them two. But the only thing they say, them two, Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels led the teams to the playoffs. So that's the only thing. And plus, Bo Nix got lucky several times because it was several games. I mean, they had like 2-game losing streak, and they almost was not able to make to the playoffs, but they got lucky at the end. They had to play the Chiefs on their second and third team. So I just feel like they just got lucky and everything.
Also, Quinyon Mitchell, defensive rookie of the year, but I don't think that's going to happen either. Shout out to Brian Thomas. He also did great. And so did Malik Neighbors. Like, again, my argument about Jaden Daniels was not great, but he got the play. He's going to have 2 left tackle. His 2 tackles are going to be drafted in the first round this year. And then the 2 best rookie wide receivers were on his team. Like, that might be more an indictment on Brian Kelly than Jaden Daniels, I should say. Like, Brian Kelly, you're about to, man, if you had it like that LSU team, the 23 LSU or 22 LSU team, Daniels Heisman year, they had.
What's 22?
Yeah, because this is 23.
23. I was about
23.
to say,
who knows, man? It's 2025, right? But the fact that you're not going to win, like you won, you just didn't have a defense, and that cost you a time where, it's just dumb. All right. We'll pick more awards. How about tomorrow? We'll give out all our awards. It's awards season in the NFL. Also, another shout out about last night. You could have heard it right here on VTRN Sports. I hope the semis and the natty are just as good as the FCS National Championship last night. Did you watch any of it?
Oh yeah, it was a pretty good game.
Really good game. 3-point game at the end. North Dakota State wins their 10th national title. 5 of the last 8. I mean, so North Dakota State is actually the Alabama of football.
I told you they're like the Alabama football.
So
they can actually compete with some of these teams in the FBS level.
So you ready for this?
Yes.
Since they got in the FCS level, they've won a national title in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019, 21, and 24. That's 10 national titles in a 14-year span. Yes, I can do math. That's ridiculous. Also, shout out to Montana State, 15-1 on the year. Their quarterback, both quarterbacks, I think they're the top 2 players in FCS football.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm them, if you have any eligibility left, I'm going to chase a bag that I think a school would go get you. But I think they're both seniors, so maybe not. But Trey Lance's brother is the best receiver on the team. Yeah, so both quarterbacks were, Miller was 19 to 22, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and they were both the leading rushers. 18 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Miller. Mellett, I think that's how you pronounce it, 13 to 24, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. 14 carries, 135 yards, 1 touchdown.
That kid can ball.
Both teams.
Yes.
And, North Dakota State, their 2 losses on the year. One's to Colorado. The other was an upset to South Dakota. Obviously, Colorado game, they lost by 5 in a game where...
And that was a team I thought, Colorado's going to lose to because, like I said, North Dakota State is like a team you don't sleep on. They compete with FBS teams, and they get beat some of these teams.
I am shocked they never truly got the invite or the love to go to the FBS level.
I think they can, but I think that this...
I think that might be a good point. They might just not want to.
Yeah. They can because they beat several. I think they beat several teams in the FBS level, but it's just nah, we gonna stay where we at.
We'll see.
Maybe we'll change in the future. We don't know.
Yeah, entirely. But we'll talk more about the college football playoff in the last segment. But we're gonna talk about the Hokies in the portal. Matt Moore is cooking in his short time here at Virginia Tech. We'll talk with that. He is up. I've texted him now. He overslept yesterday. That happens when you have a morning show. I figured the radio guy would not do that, but he did that yesterday. So he is confirmed he's coming on. I have texted him. He is awake. He's got his coffee. Paul Van Wagner next on the morning warm up right here on VTRN Sports and live on YouTube.
It's time for the annual Volkswagen Sign and Drive event going on now at Terry Volkswagen. During this event, Volkswagen throws out the best deals of the year. For example, right now you can lease a new 2024 Volkswagen Tiguan Wolfsburg Edition for only $389 per month, or a new VW Taos for only $299 a month. That's 0 down, folks. Just sign and drive with approved credit. But don't wait, because these deals don't come along often. Come see us today at Terry Volkswagen, where we say you'll love our cars.
Are you already done with winter? At Aquatrek Adventures, we can help you escape. Scuba classes are forming right now. We can have you ready for warm, picture-perfect beaches, clear tropical water, and blue skies in sunny Florida, Cozumel, the Cayman Islands, or even Fiji once you complete your certification. Take that first step. Call Aquatrek Adventures on Mill Lane in Salem and visit our website at aquatrekadventures.com.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality. Build with Right Choice.
Good morning. We are just getting your day started here on VTRN Sports with the morning warm-up. Stay connected at Trey Lyle VT and Ty Tracy 90 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Listen wherever you are with the VTRN Sports app or watch the show live on YouTube at youtube.com/VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, back to the morning warm-up.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning warm-up. I'm Trey Lyle. Ty Tracy with me as well. And joining us now, he was supposed to be on yesterday. He decides, let me mess with Trey one more time and quote unquote oversleep. I think it was because he enjoyed himself some Sunday Night Football too much and watched his Detroit Lions finish this season at 15-2 and win the number 1 seed in the NFC North. So Paul Van Wagner at Paul V. Wags, he is, I guess, the co-host of Blacksburg on the Rocks. I don't know how you want to clarify it. He just shows up and talks for a little bit. Paul, thanks so much for joining us again. You are still, I still allowed you to be the first guest on the show. So
You're the first guest. Yes, sir.
So congratulations.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
That could be a trivia question.
I'm honored. I'm honored. And let me just say, I'm super proud of you, Trey. Like, in all seriousness, man, I know one of my favorite hobbies is to mess with you and to give you grief. And I'm just so proud of you, man. The fact that you just kept grinding, kept going, got your own show. I'm honored to be your first guest. And I think you're going to do awesome things with this, man. So congratulations, buddy. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ty, I guess, for clapping as well.
I was just clapping because he's the first guest. He's the first guest ever.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, give me no credit.
Okay, well, I still give you credit, but he's like the first guest, so he's on top notch right now.
So I think we talked at the start of the season about your Detroit Lions, and we're going to talk about Virginia Tech, but I do want you, I'm going to butter him up. I didn't let him talk about his Detroit Lions. 15-2, Dan Campbell. I mean, Dan Campbell's, Ty and I touched on it in the first segment about, the coaching cycle. We said, you go back, if someone said Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell are going to be the best two hires of that cycle after the press conferences, someone would have probably sold me a riverboat or something. How does it feel just to see this team and, as they head into the postseason as the number 1 seed, eventually to lose, of course, to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game?
Well, that would be incorrect because I don't even think Philadelphia gets to the NFC Championship because they're a fraud. But I was one of those people, Trey. Like when Dan Campbell came out, he's like, "We're gonna bite kneecaps and we're gonna punch you in the face and we're gonna drag you out into the deep end of the water." And I was just like, "Who the hell is this guy? Like, what is this crap that he is spewing? Like, this is ridiculous." And, you look like Robert Saleh goes to the Jets and it's like, how come we didn't get this dude? Right. Like, and now, of course, hindsight being 2020, you look back on it and you go, damn, I'm chewing on kneecaps every Sunday. Right. Like I'm all in with this. I'm drinking the blue Kool-Aid, and Robert Saleh is out of a job. And it just, and you mentioned Nick Sirianni, like he was another one. It was like, dang, we could have got that guy too. There were a lot of coaches that it was like, wow, what are we doing here? Like, we hired the tight ends coach from New Orleans, but he embodies what being in Detroit is. He embodies what being a Detroit fan is. And like, all hail Dan Campbell, man. Like, just, you look at what he's done with this team and how they've built it and the type of players that they've gone after, right? And it's just like, dang, this is the guy for Detroit. And I've been very impressed with how they've done it, the way they've done it. It's a good time to be a Lions fan. I've been cheering for the Lions since 1980. I was 5 years old, and I've gone forgive my language, I've gone through some shit, man, in those almost 45 years of being a Detroit Lions fan. We were 0-16. We missed a lot of playoffs. We wasted the talent of Billy Sims, Barry Sanders, Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson, over those years and just never did anything with it. And there's a term that Lions fans like to use, and it's SOL, same old Lions, right? And you don't hear that term being thrown around anymore. In fact, it's almost taboo to say it anymore as a Lions fan. So it's been very, very cool to see this maturation of the Detroit Lions, and I'm very much enjoying it. And Trey, as far as your Philadelphia Eagles are concerned, they have one play, it's the tush push, and the Detroit Lions will never let them get into a position to use that play. So you might as well forget about it, buddy.
All I gotta say is maybe, just maybe, if that NFC Championship game happens, a friendly wager might have to be summoned or curated, I think is the word I'm looking. All right, let's talk about.
Absolutely, I'm down 100%. We'll figure out something for sure.
Let's talk about obviously where I got my start in radio. The place, it was Blacksburg, Virginia, where you used to you used to work there for a few years, but
a minute, yeah.
Virginia Tech. Before we talk about the portal and talk about maybe the hire Matt Moore and what they would look for in a possible defensive coordinator coming down the line, the men's basketball team, and you throw the women in this too, get a big win on Saturday against Miami. I think I think you and I are both very realistic people in terms of Mike Young got probably the worst possible hand dealt considering NIL and his projected starting backcourt is either transferred out or maybe getting arrested or getting indicted because of gambling issues.
Federal charges. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets an awful hand dealt. And, despite the fact that Scott Steiner's son is the point guard and Steiner math will not work in basketball. How big was it to get a win over Miami just to kind of show progress of some sort? Because, this Miami team might be the worst in the ACC considering what, Larinaga is out of there. And I figured that, I might be able to put up as much effort as this team will most of these games the rest of the way if you're Miami. But how big was it to get that win on Saturday?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, anytime you can pick up a win against, what I think, the fans consider an ACC rival. I think if you poll the fans around Virginia Tech and you ask, give me your top 3 rivals for the Hokies right now, I think Miami is going to come up in the vast majority of those cases in that top 3. So, the fan base loves to play Miami. The fan base loves to beat Miami. It doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, badminton, golf, tennis. It doesn't matter. Like, you want to beat Miami. They are a blue blood athletic program. Whether you want to admit it or not, Miami is a blue blood athletic program. They always seem to load up with players. They always seem to be able to come out and compete. It's very rare that Miami has a down season like what they're having right now. So to beat them, even in this down season, is huge for the team. It's huge for the fan base, and it's huge for Mike Young. It's something that you can build on. Okay, guys, look what we did here. This is how we're supposed to play this game. Let's move on to the next one, and let's try to mimic that. So I think it's big, and I agree. Mike got dealt a really crappy hand. Mike is an amazing person, a great guy, a hell of a coach. I love Mike Young. Like, I would run through a wall for Mike Young. And I just think that, he got dealt a crappy hand. You bring in a top-end point guard recruit, and the next thing you know, the feds are knocking on your door going, we have a point shaving issue here. So, like, you kind of almost have to give him a pass on this one. Like, there's no way that you could have seen this coming. And people say, well, why don't you do your due diligence? Why don't you do, check the background? They did. This isn't something that's going to come up. Like, there's nobody that's going to talk about this, like, when you're trying to recruit a kid. I think, We give them a pass. As far as the women's team is concerned, you know, this is the first season under the new coach. You know, I mean, shout out to Kenny Brooks. He did a lot for Virginia Tech. The cupboard was not left bare, you know, and so I think you look at these two basketball programs, and I think that they're going in the right direction. They did both hit a little bit of a bump in the road, but I think they're going to be fine, Trey. And I'm excited for the future of Virginia Tech basketball, honestly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think, you know, I think the fact that ACC championship banner hanging in the rafters gives me a pretty good confidence in Mike Young and his long history of winning, whether it was at Virginia Tech or Wofford. I think getting the most out of his team, and the fact that, you know, yes, they had back-to-back disappointing results. I think the Duke is Duke. St. Joe's is probably more of a disappointing result, but sometimes games just get away from you. We've seen it with the college football playoff. We've seen it, you know, it's college. But I don't know about you, Paul. I've never seen a hire have this much instant impact, and maybe it's just because of this era of college football, like Matt Moore. Like Matt Moore's pulling a Kurt Signetti to some degree, where Kurt Signetti was like, all right, I'm going to Indiana and I'm bringing, 15 JMU players with me, something like that. But, you know, 3/4 of the offensive line, or 3/5 of the offensive line, I should say, is now coming from West Virginia to Virginia Tech with the Matt Moore hire. David touched on it yesterday that he's already surpassed the last two offensive line coaches and combined. And this was during Ed's show, during the Fast Lane. David Cunningham of TexSideline.com mentioned it. You know, the fact that Matt Moore comes in and is bringing these three guys with him, how big is that? Just because, you know, if you had to pick one area to, you know, that needed kind of instant impact, it's definitely the offensive line, which, you know, despite the fact that you're going to have two guys go to SEC programs, was probably a really big issue. Yeah.
I mean, the transfer portal is what it is. Matt Moore is a home run hire as far as I'm concerned. He is, Trey. He has the experience. He has the track record. He has the history. And like you say, I mean, like you've got to bring in offensive linemen. That was like, I think Hokie Nation as a whole will agree, and this is nothing against the players, but you can point to that offensive line as the Achilles heel for Virginia Tech football this past season, right? And they had a modicum of success in spite of that offensive line, but that offensive line was not a good offensive line, not by any stretch of the imagination. So you bring in a guy like Matt Moore, and I think that that's going to shore things up. He's going to bring some of those West Virginia kids, and West Virginia had a pretty decent offensive line. Like if you could build off of that, I think that, you know, you've got something going on. You've got to have that strong offensive line, and it may not completely happen next season. Like you have to develop these kids. Like you just don't grow 6'4" to 6'7" and 300-pound guys on a tree, right? Like you've got to develop them. Like you can find the height, you can add the mass, but it's very rare that you find the height and the mass and the skill right off the bat. And Matt Moore is bringing some of that to Blacksburg, to Virginia Tech. And I like what they've got going on. I think that the transition will probably be a 2-year project minimum. But I think by the 2026 season, we'll start to see that offensive line start to grow and mesh and become what we expect the O-line to be in Blacksburg.
Yeah, and I think with kind of the skill talent, I think Aiden Green proved himself very well in the bowl game. I touched on it yesterday that if I, you know, same thing with Liberty, that, you know, when you have that many opt-outs, you just want to kind of see these flashes of freshman talent. You kind of saw it with Pop Watson in the Virginia game. Competition steps up against a really solid Minnesota team with a really good defense. Yeah. And, you know, I didn't have the worlds of expectations with him, and you're bringing Kyron Drones back for a reason. And I think if the the offensive line is marginally improved, then your offense takes the necessary steps we thought it would take last year. Looking at the other side of the ball, Chris Marv out, obviously, as defensive coordinator. It seems that host to Foster and Friends right here on VTRN Sports on Saturdays at 9 a.m. But Foster taking more of an advisory role with the team.
Yep.
Your expectations for this defensive coordinator hire or defensive coordinator search that's happening?
I think Brent Pry, as a former defensive coordinator, has a pretty good idea of who he wants this DC to be. And we're seeing Virginia Tech pulling kids out of the portal on the defensive end. And I think, Trey, that tells me that there's probably a handshake agreement in place that the inside group, Brent Pry, J.C. Price, those guys know who the new DC is going to be. I also think that there's a very good chance that the new DC is probably still coaching in college football. So you can kind of narrow it down from there as far as, who you think this person might be. And that's why it hasn't been announced yet, because I feel like if you're already pulling guys from the portal without a defensive coordinator, you must know who that person is going to be, and you just can't announce it yet. I love J.C. Price. I think he's a hell of a recruiter, and I think he's a hell of a coach. But, he's not bringing defensive linemen in to replenish that crew without those defensive linemen knowing who the guy is going to be calling the plays when they hit the field here in the spring, and more importantly in August when they start working on the 2025 season. So I think that person is in place. I think we're just going to need, a loss from one of the four teams remaining to have an announcement made, and I think it's going to come quickly.
We all know the team. You can say it. It's kind of easy to figure out.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it comes from Penn State.
Pick a defensive coach not named Tom Allen, and it might be one of them.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, and that's a good pull. Like, Penn State is a blue blood program. I mean, if you can pull a DC from Penn State, good on you, man. Good on you. Like, that's huge for Virginia Tech.
I mean, it possibly, if I had to recklessly speculate, it may be an ilk of the Fontel Mines hire, a former Virginia, maybe a former Virginia, someone with UVA ties in Anthony Poindexter. Hint. Just pointing out, because he is the co-DC at Penn State and may or may not have a say in recruiting a lot of Virginia kids to Penn State, including Tyler Warren, who is the best tight end in the country for Virginia Tech commit from Mechanicsville, Virginia, just like Trey Lyle. How about that? All right, tying it all together.
Right. A lot of talent in Mechanicsville, Virginia, I believe. Isn't Evan Hughes from that general area also?
He's from Hanover County, so
close enough.
Close enough. Same county.
That region has a lot of talent, Trey, and you're part of that, buddy.
Thanks. I might be on the lower tier of that if you're comparing me to Tyler Warren and Evan Hughes, but I appreciate it.
It all started out as a dancing tomato.
I knew that was coming at some point. No, I'm not offering context to that. You look at these defensive, they add the linebacker from Eastern Michigan and James. I'm not even going to try the last name. Eris Nash from Mercer last night, a safety. Ultimately, despite the 6-7 season, which I was trying not to buy the hype as most people did. Granted, it's still a disappointing season when you don't improve, when you bring that much talent back. It still feels like, yes, you can argue Brent Pry is probably on the hot seat if he has, or is in danger if he repeats what he had this year, but you can still see the substantial improvement over the last 3 seasons with this Hokies team.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. And again, I think a lot of it goes back onto the offensive line, right? Like, I mean, you're losing games by 1 score. Your offense isn't able to put up points Why is the offense not able to put up points? Because you can't protect your quarterback and you can't make holes for your running game, right? Like, it's not like the defense is giving up a boatload of points. So, you just have to, I think you improve that offensive line, and I think you're going to see big changes for Virginia Tech. I hate to keep harping on that one thing, but I really, truly believe that is the linchpin to make this Hokie team better moving forward. And I believe that they're on the right track to do that.
Paul V. Wags on Twitter at Blacksburg on the Rocks. Whenever you and Jeremy decide to show up and do something, I feel like, is it Wednesday nights now? Is it Tuesday nights?
Usually it's Tuesday nights at 8:00. Around the holidays, it got a little tough. We had family in from all over the world. We had family members come in from Japan. So we had to bump a lot of things during the holidays, but we're back now. So actually tonight at 8:00, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere, any social media. We're there. You can find us and you can stream the show live at 8:00.
Yeah. So you stream it live until the NASCAR season starts, and then you can watch it later. And you're actually watching live the Happy Hour podcast on youtube.com. Maybe so, but Paul, thanks so much for hopping in. I almost said that.
Yeah, buddy.
I almost said the fast lane again. That would have been the second back-to-back days, the morning warm-up. You can go back to sleep now. You're pounding the coffee, so I figured you'll be okay.
I got about 3 cups of coffee in me now, so I'm good for the day. Luckily, because of the snow and my new career, I probably won't be doing a whole lot of work today. So I'll probably just kick back and watch Family Feud and The Price is Right today. I got big plans, Trey.
All right, remember, always bet 1 on The Price is Right. So,
all right, that works.
All right, Paul Van Wagner. When we come back, we'll look ahead a little bit. Look ahead to the college football playoffs. I'll get Ty's thoughts on those here on the morning warm up on VTRN Sports.
Imagine the extra income you'll get from a rental property. Now imagine more time for yourself. At Brownstone Properties, we handle the details of your rental, finding reliable tenants, collecting rent, and ensuring your property stays in top shape. With our transparent pricing and 24/7 support, you're always in the loop. Join our family of satisfied clients today. Visit brownstoneproperties.com or our office at 3720 Old Forest Road in Lynchburg for a free consultation. Let's make your property work for you.
From interest rates to everyone's personal credit history and background, everybody's in a different spot. At Feller Chevrolet, they understand that. It's why Greg Walker spoke with us and shared how Feller Chevrolet can work with you.
Well, we have multiple lenders, so everybody's different in personality and in their credit equity of what they put into a vehicle. So the different lenders have different areas that they like to go after, and we know which ones to use for the different individuals to get them the best payments possible terms that they need. As far as interest rates, everybody is saying, oh my goodness, they're getting so high. But if you look historically, we're really right in a rate area that traditionally for housing and cars is very competitive. We've just been so spoiled.
At Feller Chevrolet, they work with people from diverse credit backgrounds to get the right car for their needs. Stop by and see them, Main Street in Alta Vista, and visit fellersdirect.com.
Good morning. We are just getting your day started here on VTRN Sports with the morning warm-up. Stay connected at Trey Lyle VT and Ty Tracy 90 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Listen wherever you are with the VTRN Sports app or watch the show live on YouTube at youtube.com/VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, back to the morning warm-up.
Welcome back into the morning warm-up here on VTRN Sports. One final time this morning. Ty, your first morning doing this. How you feeling? Feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling good and everything. That workout got me going. Then when I get home, I'll probably go crash.
Yeah, I get that. I took a nap. I came in yesterday before the fast lane to get, I didn't know if you were going to be here because, I'll be doing the fast lane. We're splitting it. Let's just put it that way. running the board, because Ty has a actual job during the day. He has to watch children. That sounded weird, but it is part of his job. But looking ahead, college football playoff. Ohio State, Texas is probably, I think, the game for the national championship, but also the game that I think is more likely to get a blowout. So we'll look at that tomorrow, because the first game is the Orange Bowl, which does feature a pseudo ACC team, and if you want to count Notre Dame taking on Penn State. We just touched on Penn State a little bit about probably the defensive coordinator for Virginia Tech is coming from there. Just given the ties that Brent Pry has to that program, and the fact that, if you notice, these hires don't get announced. Like West Virginia ended their season the next day, Matt Moore gets hired. So I think you're waiting till Penn State finishes their season and it gets hired. I think Paul kind of laid that out eloquently, because if you're a guy transferring here and you don't know who your DC is, I don't think that's just not going to happen. But it's going to be interesting. I think Penn State's offense has struggled a lot this playoff. I just think their defense is carried the way, and kind of similar for Notre Dame. But
they're just so one-dimensional.
Yeah,
I think they're leaning towards the run than the pass.
Ultimately, I think what wins or loses the game for Notre Dame is Riley Leonard in terms of his legs, because I think in that game against Georgia, they got the turn. The defense played awesome, and it was Riley Leonard. He had 80 yards rushing. It was the Riley Leonard first down conversions that ultimately won them that game, and I think that will be the key: is can Riley Leonard get the necessary conversions with his legs?
I don't think so, because you got to think about it. Penn State's front seven, they would make you work for them yards. That's how they did Ashante Genty. They made him work for them. He had 100 yards.
Ashante? You mean Ashton?
Ashton. I always say Ashante. I don't know why. Ashton Genty. And they made him work for them yards, even though he had over 100 yards, just 102, but they still made him work for every single yard and everything. And they know how to gang tackle and ride to the ball really well.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I picked in my original bracket, I had this matchup and I picked Penn State to win. I just trust their defense. In this one, and Drew Aller makes a lot of great plays with his arm. He said he's coming back next year, which I think is an underrated kind of return, because if he actually does, if Penn State somehow wins the national championship, he might just say, I'm out and go, because there's a clear path for him to be a top 3 or the 3rd quarterback taken. But he, with his size, with his talent, he might be the number 1 next year. But I do have an update from, I know, this was the look ahead spot, but apparently in his press conference talking about why they fired Doug Peterson, Shad Khan said that he would fire Trent Baalke if a head coach gave him a credible reason, which is objectively hilarious, because Trent Baalke is on the Zoom call right next to him. So objectively, that's hilarious. Just want to point that out. Just, the internet provides some great things. The internet, looking ahead or looking back on this past weekend, the internet did some great things. I said I wouldn't make jokes about it yesterday. About, Sunday Night Football was happening. There was also some jokes on the internet that were just great. And Ty and I talked about them off air yesterday. But still looking ahead till tonight. No local teams in action. Tech heading to the West Coast. Interesting. I think they're going to be an interesting spot coming off that win against Miami as they head to Stanford. North Carolina will be taking on SMU after their big win against Notre Dame, the 4-point play. That's in the ACC. The women on Thursday host undefeated Georgia Tech. Maybe the best story in women's college basketball is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, who are 15-0 on the season. But I think right now we're in playoff mode. We got tons of playoff games to talk about. We'll talk more about them tomorrow as well. Still working on our guests, because the hard part of having a 7 a.m. show is finding people who are up at 7 a.m. But Ty, what do you think about what do you think about your first show? You felt good about it?
Yeah, pretty good. I wake up like 3:30 in the morning to get my workout in for.
You wake up at 3:30 every day?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's insane.
Like, well, I gotta let my car run for a good 30 minutes. Then I take a little 30-minute sleep, then wake up, go to work, go to the gym.
Still, that's 4 a.m.
You understand? I'm used to it like in college, so it's different.
Because of football.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, Virginia, you wouldn't have school today. I still get Richmond updates. Virginia Union's closed today. So congrats, you wouldn't have had school today.
I'll say one thing, while I was at West Virginia was the best feeling because we barely had class because it snowed almost every single day. That was the best feeling.
You went to West Virginia?
Concord, West Virginia.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay. But what a time! I mean, this is a great football week. Like looking ahead, you have the 2 semifinals Thursday, Friday. Then Saturday, 2 NFL games. Sunday, 3 NFL games. Then the Monday night game.
5 days of football.
Not just 5 days of football. 5 days of playoff football.
That's
the only negative is that means we're winding down on playoff season. But we'll talk the NBA. We'll talk a little baseball. The A's are apparently spending money, which that franchise deserves to just get never talked about. But are you excited to see new Los Angeles Charger Ezekiel Elliott?
Golly, I don't even want to talk about Ezekiel Elliott.
All right, and that's how we'll end today. All right, that's how we'll end today. Thank you so much for tuning into the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle and Ty Tracy. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. right here on VTRN Sports.